Welcome everybody to the Morning Update Show. I am your co-host, Trey Holiday. And as y'all can see, I'm at my home studio today, but that's all right because we have all the technology needed to make it happen. Before I bring in my co-hostess with the mostest, I got to send a beloved shout out to my goddaughter, Brooklyn. Happy birthday, Brooklyn. Love you so much. Let's bring in Big O. What up, Big O?
Good morning, Trey Holiday. How are you?
I'm well, my friend. How are you today? Looking nice and spry in the studio.
Man, that's all thanks goes to Alia D'Alessandro over here getting me right. Miss you in the studio today, but I guess we'll have you back here tomorrow, right?
Yes, you will, sir.
Okay, it's a date. Hey, before we get going with everything, I want to remind everybody there's a great opportunity to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and share the Morning Update Show, especially with somebody whom you know might not be watching the Morning Update Show, but could really benefit from culturally relevant news and information. We got a pretty busy show today. We're joined by Shaun Scott and Jaiden Grayson. There's this Subpoena Solon campaign, this hashtag campaign. It's going around Seattle. Mike Solon, of course, the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, or SPOG, and the police officers' contract. It expired on December 31st. There's still negotiations with the city. So Shaun and Jaiden are going to be talking to us about that. We also got some headlines, and we got another edition of Struggle Meals Without the Struggle. I checked in with Omi out in Chicago, and he's saying that these days the struggle ain't so real. So we'll get into all of that.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Okay, well, before we get into our guests, we got a few headlines. It's Black History Month, and man, we're going to stay grounded and centered in that every day. And right here from our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald. Today is Black History Today, Representative Don Mason. You can read more about this at southseattleemerald.com. Says Don served two-year terms in the Washington State Legislature from 1995 to 1999, serving during that time as Assistant Minority Whip and Ranking Chair of the Higher Education Committee. The Washington Student Lobby presented her with Legislator of the Year Award in 1996 for her effective leadership in maintaining access to higher education for all students. In 1998, she was appointed by President Bill Clinton to the Women's Economic Roundtable. It goes on and on about her accomplishments, but Don Mason is somebody, Representative Mason is somebody that you and I both know very well.
Absolutely. I consider Don Mason one of my elder mentors. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm fixing my camera here. Make sure. There we go.
There you go. Hey.
Yeah, there we go. I'm working on it. I just all thanks to Nikki for helping me kind of set up a better studio here. So thank you, Nikki. I'm getting it better. But you know what, Don Mason, a true, amazing spirit in our community. And I'm so thankful that the South Seattle Emerald has given her this honor with this article. It is much deserved. And she is still out here in community fighting for the education of our baby. Shout out to you, Miss Don Mason. We love you so much.
All right, another one here. This actually comes from Good Morning America. It turns out that India already nominates Dr. Maxine Mims. Trey Holiday, tell us all. Well, let me give a quick description here real quick. Dr. Maxine Mims founded Evergreen State College Tacoma campus over 45 years ago. And at age 92 years old, she is living history, having been an educator for over half a century and an activist for even longer. She is a peer, sister, and friends to the likes of the late Maya Angelou, Odetta, Abby Lincoln, Jesse Norman, Cicely Tyson, the late Cicely Tyson, and Simone, Oprah Winfrey, and more. There's so many people who call Dr. Mims Mama Mims. She's inspired and encouraged so many people. And Good Morning America has now nominated her for something here, huh?
Absolutely. She has been nominated for folks who are making history in 2021. Dr. Maxine Mims, it is not every day that we start the Morning Update Show with two of my favorite elders in the community. These are people that I talk to on a regular basis. They help to keep me grounded, keep me informed about the history, the long, rich legacies that really are within the Black community here in Seattle. And shout out to Dr. Maxine Mims, still holding it down to this day. I am beyond, Omari, that we're starting with Miss Dawn Mason and then Dr. Maxine Menz. Thank you, India Ari, for giving Dr. Menz this nomination of somebody who is still making history with her life every day and every breath. She still holds critical conversations in community. She's been doing that for 14 years. It has been phenomenal, and I've been able to be a part of that. And honestly, you're going to have me get emotional because I love Dr. Maxine Menz and it's Dawn Mason. What a great way to start the day.
All right, it's too soon in the show to be crying. We always save that for last. Well, I might as well hit you with the trifecta of good news then. Stacey Abrams nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. It says here, out of Oslo, Norway, U.S. voting rights activist and Democratic Party politician Stacey Abrams has been nominated for this year's Nobel Peace Prize for her work to promote nonviolent change via the ballot box.
You know what I got to say now. I mean, we're starting this off with nothing more than some Black woman magic. Okay, let me just say, man, clearly we saw the efforts of Miss Stacey Abrams out there in this latest election for president. And honestly, what a spirit that was just came through with force. I've heard so many personal accounts of people who were like, nah, man, you know, that her team was serious and they were knocking on doors and they were making sure that voters were informed. So she definitely deserves this honor. All I got to say is sprinkle me May, because that Black woman magic is all over the place. And thank you, Miss Abrams, for all of your work in moving us forward and pushing us over the finish line.
All right. And so you had three Black woman magic stories there. Now we're knocked back down here to to reality. All right. This is coming from the UFCW 21 from their website. It says PCC pushes to cut workers out of new hazard pay law. And in here, it's saying that, let me find it here. In an unprecedented move, the new PCC CEO, a former Kroger executive, is pushing Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin to kill the grocery store hazard pay mandate approved by the Seattle City Council last week. Says this move is out of step with the values that have made PCC a success.
Wait, okay. All I got to say is you just got the seat of the CEO. I think even today there's going to be a meeting with PCC members. They opened it up to have questions that came from PCC membership. And honestly, we've been on PCC's head since the 4th of July event, and we're not stopping at all in terms of folks in the community. People in the community really want to be informed and understand the strategies that PCC has around their worker protection and bringing a diverse set of leadership into their board and into their stores. And I'll say this is horrible for them to kind of come out in this regard. Clearly, people on the ground, workers, UFCW, and those who are really involved in labor unions have a lot of work to do to fight against these kind of measures right here. This is a horrible look for the new CEO to take this stance.
All right. Well, I'm talking to Mayor Jenny Durkin today at 12:30 p.m. I think that this is going to be one of the questions I ask her. I mean, if the CEO of Kroger is now wanting to lobby the mayor directly about this hazard pay, I think most people in the city of Seattle agree with this hazard pay for these essential workers. It'll be good to get the mayor's opinion on that. And so we'll be able to update everybody tomorrow. Also, I'm talking to Prosecutor Satterberg at 12:05, talking to Mayor Durkin at 12:30. So we'll have a lot of stuff to bring back to the community tomorrow. Real quick.
Looking forward to that.
Say what?
I said, I'm looking forward to that. They got some things to answer.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to her about the task force too, Mayor Durkin, and see what's going on with that as well. We're going to take
I'm sorry, but can you also ask her? I gotta say this. Please ask her about the street czar. What is going on with the street czar? How the street czar is being involved in some of these community measures around policing. I just wonder what's up also with the street czar. If you could throw that question in for me, man, I appreciate it.
Let me see if I can put it on the list for you. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we're joined by Shaun Scott and Jaiden Grayson. They're talking about subpoena Solon and the SPOG contract with the city of Seattle. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury, right here in Converge Media Studios, and I'm joined by
Ray Holiday at the Holiday Studios.
Holiday Studios. Looks comfortable, man.
We know Miss Nikki Barron, producer extraordinaire, did hook me up. Thank you, Nikki.
All right. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in Shaun Scott and Jaiden Grayson, please, all you. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Good morning. How are you? Grand Rising.
Yes, Grand Rising, y'all.
Good. How are you? Man, you guys are mellow this morning. This is good stuff. Here's what we're going to do. So all of this, I really came aware of this campaign because Speculation put out a video, and then some of the video was some footage that said Converge Media. And so people are always like letting us know, like, hey, we saw your footage somewhere. And so I looked at this and I was like, okay, is this a new campaign that's going, and kind of followed up. And I saw a lot of different people are chiming in and have something to say about this hashtag subpoena Solon. Spec made like a 6-minute video. It's like 6-7 minutes. It's on his Twitter. If people want to check it out. We had to chop it down. We chopped it down to about 3 minutes here. So we'll play a bit of that, and then we're going to get into this conversation.
In early 2020, Seattle police officers elected Mike Solon to head their labor union. His campaign for union president focused on demonizing activists. It included prominent features and interviews in local right-wing outlets like Safe Seattle, as well as a campaign ad made of clips pulled from the Russian state television channel RT. The campaign was wildly successful, and Solon was elected with more than 70% of the vote. In accordance with Seattle's current police contract, Solon's union salary is paid by the city of Seattle. Since his election, Solon has used his position and his access to far-right media to skirt accountability and deliberately misinform the people of Seattle as well as his nationwide audience. These efforts ramped up significantly with the start of the George Floyd protests in the summer of 2020. On May 28th, 3 days after Floyd's murder, Solon went on an alt-right podcast where he railed against the, quote, activist class.
We cannot allow the activist class to continue to rule Seattle.
A few days later, he appeared on the Dory Monson Show, claiming without evidence that protesters had hit a Seattle police officer in the face with a cinder block. This dubious claim was included in an anti-protest video the union released a few days later. It was also alluded to in an open letter Solon published on June 6th, urging the city to reconsider its new ban on tear gas. That letter also appeared to reference the, quote, incendiary device that Seattle police claim was thrown by protesters. In truth, the device was a candle. Days later, and without reason, Seattle police abandoned their East Precinct building, leading protesters to occupy the surrounding block in what became known as the Capitol Hill Organized Protest, or CHOP. In the following weeks, Solon made several appearances on Fox News, exploiting and supporting the hyperbolic narrative being pushed by right-wing media. That narrative led to protesters being violently targeted by right-wing militias and even inspired the president to threaten military action against the people of Seattle. In response to the ongoing protests, as well as the police union's continued efforts to avoid accountability and resist meaningful change, the King County Labor Council voted in July to expel Seattle's police union from its ranks. On the morning of June 20th, just hours after a black teenager had been killed in the protest zone, Solon appeared on Fox News, falsely claiming that police had been prevented from entering the scene and rendering medical aid. This narrative was seized on by right-wing media, including folks like Sean Hannity. In fact, body cam footage proves Seattle police met no physical resistance, and they did not even attempt to enter the scene until after the victim had been transported to the hospital by civilian medics. Despite clear evidence and in-depth reporting from local journalists, Solon never admitted to the mistake or attempted to correct the record. A week later, as the CHOP occupation entered its final days, Solon allegedly sent an email to his union membership telling officers to consider refusing direct orders from the chain of command, quote, given the current political climate. Following the coup attempt at the U.S. Capitol, Solon shared another tweet from Andy Ngo, this time implying that Black Lives Matter shared responsibility for the murderous insurrection. This resulted in calls for Solon's resignation from the mayor, the former police chief, and a majority of the city council. Solon has refused these calls, citing strong support from his union membership, and he has given a full-throated defense of Andy Ngo.
Andy does his job and he does it well, and he has an impeccable track record.
Taken together, Solon's willingness to spread disinformation over the course of the past year proves that he is unfit to be a police officer in the city of Seattle, and it raises serious doubts about a union membership that continues to overwhelmingly support him despite such a blatant disregard for the truth. As Seattle enters negotiations for a new police contract, leaders have to ask themselves whether positive outcomes can be achieved when one side is acting in such bad faith.
All right, that video right there has been edited for time. The full video is there at Speculations page. You can find it there on Twitter. Shaun Scott, let's start with you. What's this subpoena Solon all about?
Right, absolutely. It's good to be with you, Omari and Trey and Jaiden as well. So in May of 2020, the early weeks of the pandemic, Seattle City Council actually threatened to subpoena a public health official who was being avoidant. The city had real concerns, real information that they needed about how to go about crafting its strategy to mitigate and combat the spread of COVID-19. And since the public health official, who I believe worked with King County, was not responding to their emails, their phone calls, or whatnot, council actually threatened to use its subpoena power, its power to compel a witness to appear, in order to remedy the situation, the public health situation. Currently in the city of Seattle, we are looking at a crisis in public safety with a Seattle police force that has been under a federal consent decree for nearly a decade for repeated instances of unconstitutional uses of force. A Seattle Police Department, 5 officers of which attended a attempted coup on the U.S. Capitol that doubled as a super spreader event. Public safety, or what Seattle has made of it and the Seattle Police Department has made of it, is a public health issue. So when we're talking about subpoena Solon, we're talking about calling the president of the Seattle Police Union to account for the misdeeds of the Seattle Police Department in recent weeks, with those 5 officers identified as participating in that coup. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered about the internal culture of the Seattle Police Department that allowed this to happen, the question of whether or not city resources were used in the pursuit to overthrow the United States government, questions about how it is exactly that we're going to get answers about the extent to which white supremacy has pervaded the culture of the Seattle Police Department. So that's really what subpoena Solon is about. It boils down to 3 demands. Number 1, that the Office of Civil Rights denounce the officers and the internal culture of the police department that allowed those officers to participate in the coup attempt. Number 2, call on the Seattle City Council to subpoena Mike Solon, the head of the police union. And number 3, work with council to convene a panel of 5 to 10 voices from community to really try to get some kind of an account from Solon at his subpoena hearing.
Right. And I would say that at least officially, what they're saying is and through OPA, what they're saying is these officers very well might have attended the rally, which was at the Ellipse. And what they're doing is investigating whether these officers did anything illegal as far as try to enter the Capitol or were part of the actual insurrection that occurred there at the Capitol. That's the line from OPA. No one has officially said whether these officers had participated in what occurred inside the Capitol.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. That they would even try and take that stance is so inappropriate when we've seen demonstrators here in Seattle experience harsher charges than some of the individuals who were at the insurrection on the 6th. I think it speaks to, if we flash back to a demonstration just a few months ago here in Seattle when they were using that LED dye to identify people so that they were able to pull them, the protesters that got pulled from that and the use of that dye ended up getting charged for sentences that were like somewhat of 10 years under a federal crime, for a federal crime that they're saying for even being present at the demonstration. And I don't think that there's any way in good faith that people can keep coming, that the city of Seattle and SPD, including Mike Solon, can continue coming forward saying that they weren't emboldening these actions, that they weren't encouraging these actions. And I personally think it's a weird thing. Honestly, it's very strange to try and defend, well, were they there, but they didn't commit an act of crime? You were there with the intention to storm the Capitol. I don't know where else the conversation goes from that, personally.
Mm-hmm. I see you back there, Trey Holiday.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from wholeheartedly. And I think that what we're really talking about here is accountability to the community and the constituents that they serve. And that is really key. When we just got the numbers and folks are saying that Seattle cops made up the biggest faction. I mean, what is you guys' reaction to that? I think, again, this is really about accountability.
Right. Well, NPR, Martin Case, I believe, of NPR reported that the biggest known contingent of officers to attend the coup attempt at the U.S. Capitol came from Seattle PD. There have been some disputes about whether or not the Philadelphia Police Department has the city beat by an officer or two. Nonetheless, not the competition that you would like to see your city police force, to which you're devoting approximately half of the city budget embroiled in. I think that the reaction that I had, the reaction that a lot of folks who have been observing the behavior of the police department had, was now you know. It really, I think a lot of organizers, activists who have been on the ground, who watched the Seattle Police Department deploy, for example, chemical weapons in Seattle's most densely populated residential neighborhood. There are a number of folks who are party to a class action lawsuit who are still struggling with the health ramifications of that deed. None of them would be surprised to see that officers representing the city of Seattle and its taxpayers would be eager to participate in a coup attempt. With respect to the fine distinctions that the police department is interested in making with respect to whether or not officers were actually inside the Capitol or not, I believe the argument runs something like, everybody has free speech and a right to assemble. Well, the speech that was being expressed on the 6th was that democracy didn't matter. So whether you're talking about people, inside of the Capitol taking selfies or folks that attended the so-called rally in support, there is a moral standard that the Seattle Police Department and its officers and its union president are operating beneath. And it is, I think, imperative on the city's Office of Civil Rights to push our elected officials, the 9 council members who represent our city's nearly 700,000 residents, to call Solon, call the union president, call the Seattle Police Department to account in ways that have not happened previously.
Right. And what is it like? What questions? So you subpoena somebody, they got to, their peer. What questions exactly would you like the Office of Civil Rights to ask Mike Solon?
I personally would like to see questions looking like whether the Seattle Police Department or Seattle Police Officers Guild officials knew in advance that members would be attending, whether officers were encouraged to attend, whether any city resources were used in support of officers' attendance, and whether the culture within SPD and SPOG encourages political extremism, particularly that of the alt-right or white nationalists. But also, I want to know how it is that this is, how this had to be done by residents and everyday people, and how it wasn't something that said, we need to move, and we need to move right now. We are using taxpayers' dollars, and we're being paid by the people to take stances on issues like this. And that leans into the Office of Civil Rights, as well as the Seattle City Council, all the way up to our mayor. This shouldn't have had to come from anybody within community. This is something that should have came from them. And it leads us really back to the initial demands and the fact that we as the people continue saying, you are not hearing us. You're not showing up in the way that we need you to show up. You're not doing your job. And so if we're going to start doing our job, we're obviously going to start asking, why are we paying you so much to do that when you don't do it and you don't actually listen to the people? And so in addition to those questions about the internal cultures of SPD, about the knowledge and awareness that was going on before and during the attendance to the insurrection on January 6th, I think the entire city deserves to know why it took a group of activists and organizers without official titles putting themselves together and saying, what is it that we can do? I'm really interested to know why it took so long for them to step up.
Right, and I will say this is that in Speck's video there, you saw that the mayor, former police chief Best, most of the city council, some other city officials, they all called for Solon's resignation. So they haven't, around that tweet, the BLM tweet, maybe some other things as well, they haven't necessarily been quiet on the issue of Solon. But do you feel that they don't necessarily have enough teeth, or they need public support?
Well,
I think. Oh, I apologize. Shaun, you want to go?
I'm sorry for stepping on you. We watched in the middle of last year as the outgoing police chief of the Seattle Police Department was elevated to continue pushing a narrative which I do not think was conducive to police accountability. Speaking for myself personally, and I want to reiterate that these demands are rooted in community. So I'm not attempting to speak on behalf of everybody that wants to see police accountability in the city. Speaking for myself, I'm not interested in seeing Mike Solon dispensed and replaced with a more moderate seeming Seattle Police Union president, to whom the city of Seattle is actually paying his salary.
Well, hold on. Let me just stop you right there, Shaun, because to be honest with you, there was a more moderate Seattle Police Officers Guild president and somebody who actually had deeper ties in the community. That was Stuckey. And they voted, the police officers voted Solon in by over 70%.
That's an important point to bring up. And it was under Stuckey's reign that a number of the injustices that have fueled activists moving forward occurred. So to finish my point, I'm not interested in seeing a more moderate seeming police union president rise to the helm so that members of city government who do not have commitments to police accountability can have somebody that they can work with as a partner. What I want to see is the current Seattle Police Union president held to account and the current Seattle Police Department held to account. That's really where I think the focus ought to be.
In addition to that, I just want to say that I think what we're really talking about here is that them going on Twitter and saying something, them making calls to community to see if there's interest in this, really isn't the point here, in my opinion. I think that the fact that it happened should be means enough for Seattle City Council and the co-chairs and Office of Civil Rights to get themselves together and make these decisions, because that's what their job is. And so I think speaking up about it in a way turns into political theater, because if you continue to just acknowledge that something happened and people are satisfied or experience that instant gratification from seeing, oh, they said something about it, they must be doing something about it, that's not true. And how many times have we seen our own mayor get up here and say the opposite of what is happening in the streets and claim that they're taking that issue seriously? A great example of this would be at the very beginning of the demonstrations when they said, okay, we see that people are protesting and they're demonstrating out in the street. Let's have some meetings. And who is it that we saw in those closed door meetings that didn't happen with Access for Community? But we saw a lot of members of community that don't actually represent community, that have been threats or dangers to community. And those were the people that were chosen and picked, one of the Seattle's own street czar being one of them. And so that doesn't speak to the needs of the people, but it certainly does look like it when you broadcast it for the rest of the world to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those actions of tweeting something or saying something and showing that there's interest or trying to vet if there's interest is not as compelling to me as doing the work and saying this is a problem and we need to figure out how we're going to organize ourselves. That would have been more of intrigue to me, but I'm not really moved by the fact that they were able to tweet something.
Right. And before I go on with my question, I want to throw it over. You got anything to Trey Holiday?
Yeah, I just want to say, Jay, that you're absolutely right. When we talk about gatekeeping, this is exactly what we're talking about. And honestly, the people of Seattle, I know so many in community who are tired of it. And honestly, there does need to be a new pathway forward that does not enhance those gatekeeping abilities, that really allows community voice to be at the forefront of this. And so I just wanted to say that kudos to what you just said. I totally agree. Go ahead, O.
Yeah, well, so the contract expired on December 31st, and it keeps reverting back to the previous contract. It's the way that these contracts here work. So I want to start with you first, Shaun, and we'll talk about what's going on down in Olympia. But right now in Olympia, there's a lot of legislation that's on the table that would actually impact policing, not only in Seattle, but across the state of Washington. We had Representative Jesse Johnson on here talking about a bill that he's introduced around tactics of the use of blast balls, the use of tear gas, militarized weapons, things like that. There's also legislation there for a registry of officers and who have been found findings of bad conduct. They're talking about a register for officers who might have been fired in one department, so they don't go to another department. There's also one for decertification. The biggest one impacting probably the city of Seattle in a lot of these conversations is collective bargaining. And there's a collective bargaining bill that's on there. I think it's Senate Bill 5055 or 5056. And you had some Seattle politicians that actually testified. We watched the testimony. We saw Mayor Durkin, Lisa Herbold, Colleen Echohawk, the mayor of Tacoma. Quite a few political figures are actually supporting the concept of changing the collective bargaining around the contracts and in which cities work with police unions. Have you been following any of this legislation down there in Tacoma, and what are your thoughts on it?
Right. So I do work with the Statewide Poverty Action Network, and one of our policy priorities has been tracking and helping to advance bills that have a direct impact on so-called police accountability. You mentioned House Bill 1054, the bill that prohibits the use of chokehold and neck restraints. Certainly that bill, as well as House Bill 2082, which gives the Washington Justice Training Commission authority to decertify officers that have been found guilty of misconduct, would represent real advances. At the same time, the demands that were put forward by community in the city of Seattle over the summer in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder had to do with removing resources from our local police departments, not just monitoring and sort of adjusting around the edges the tactics that they use. Washington State Patrol's budget is currently about $700 million, million with an M. That is a huge sum that could go towards other measures that would help community, a tax credit for direct cash assistance payments and other measures. So it really does come back to me to the demands that were put forward by community over the summer. The thrust was to defund the Seattle Police Department by 50%. Members of city government said they could not do it because of the stipulations within the city's union contract. So we got 18%. Meanwhile, the union contract, as you mentioned, expired 4 weeks ago. So we need to know what the plan is as we're getting ready to go into contract negotiations with a demonstrated bad faith actor like Mike Solon. I think this is the perfect opportunity to remind the people of Seattle that maybe if the Seattle Police Department had 50% fewer resources, they wouldn't have had the time, the energy, or the gumption to travel to the U.S. Capitol to try to overthrow the government. That's a point that needs to be made and articulated, that when we're talking about defunding the police, we're talking about defunding the police.
Right. And now, Jaiden, do you agree with Shaun that the measures that are taking place, or they're being presented down in Olympia, even if passed statewide and become law, that's not enough for what people want to see here, people like yourself want to see here in the city of Seattle?
What I'll say is this. it's very evident to me that Seattle governing bodies and in general governing bodies are more eager to spend more money trying to go around the issue than addressing the issue head on. And I personally, after watching the way that they fumbled unbelievably with the demands that were set forth during the summer and in May after the murder of George Floyd, I am not confident in their ability to follow through. And as much as I appreciate the sentiments that come with the idea of reform, and I think that a lot of what we're seeing in these bills and these pushes for police accountability are their own performative versions of reform, but I do not co-sign that. I don't support that. I think that when we said abolition, we meant abolition. And I think that there's attempts to distract from that conversation. There's attempts to reform the way we approach that conversation. And I stay rooted in the demands that came forward by community. So all of these versions of it, do I think that they will put us potentially on the pathway? Because once we defund by 50% and we see police brutality go up, as retaliation measures, when we see more murders of our brothers and sisters, then we'll be having a different conversation, right. And we'll be having a more urgent conversation.
Right, and let me throw this over to you, Shaun. I mean, Jaiden is saying abolition, saying defund by 50%. What's the flip side of that argument? Is people that are like, well, hey, you know what? We like our police protection in certain neighborhoods. They like how things are policed there. And for them, they're like, well, they're going to see a reduction in services possibly by 50%. Maybe you can explain the concept as you guys see it, how public safety maintains when you reduce the budget of the police department.
Right. Well, a number of functions that are currently executed by the police department really have no place in the hands of armed agents of the state. I think even a lot of members of the Seattle Police Department, ironically, would tell you that at present, there are many police that are overburdened. Carmen Best, who I'm not a fan of quoting favorably in general, once said that we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of the problem of homelessness, despite the fact that there have been a number of city resources devoted and funneled through the police department to mitigate that problem or end homelessness in the city by displacing it and trying to move it out of sight. So what I would encourage somebody who has real questions, legitimate questions about what so-called public safety would look like moving forward in the event that we hopefully defund the Seattle Police Department by 50%, is to think very critically about all of the functions that we're currently asking the police to execute and whether or not it makes the most sense to have a police department execute those functions, or could there be a different way of imagining how those transactions are handled without a department that clearly has an accountability problem with and a demonstrated inability to de-escalate situations that really don't need to have the introduction of folks with arms and anger management issues.
Right. And now, Shaun, you ran for public office. What was it? It was District 4?
That's correct. District 4 was the district where Charlena Lyles, rest her soul, was killed by the Seattle Police Department. Right.
And so, yeah, Charlena, man. I only bring that up because I know in being a city council candidate, you've also studied a lot about city council and processes. And so now let's talk about the contract. City has to negotiate with SPOG for a new contract. Maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit about that process and how it works.
So I'll tell you, as I understand it, there are a number of functions that you would be responsible for executing as a Seattle City Council member. There's a public-facing aspect to it where, for instance, just before we got onto this call with one another, the LGBTQ Commission and the Human Rights Commission delivered a letter to council and the mayor iterating the demands of the Subpoena Solon Commission. That's going to be on the council to respond to. And if they choose not to, that's going to be something that they're going to have to handle moving forward, right? The optic of not responding to two of the core committees that form the Office of Civil Rights, calling on them to take action in this area. But there is a less public-facing aspect of it that you're correct to identify, which has to do with the specifics of the police contract. The Seattle Police Department has been under a federal probe for close to a decade, a consent decree, because of its rollback of accountability measures. Indeed, many Seattle City Council members, including a few who are probably going to come before your show, Amari and Trey, and try to make it look like they've been friends of police accountability, ratified that contract in 2018, despite being told by no less than 24 community groups that it was going to be a really terrible rollback of accountability measures. Those measures are really the ones that form the bulk of the work that needs to be done around the contract. They are the reason why the consent decree has persisted and is going to be 10 years old in another year or so. And so it's really on that focus, as well as the aspects of the contract that have to do with firing officers who have repeated complaints of misconduct, whether it be at protests or in situations that need to be de-escalated. So that's really where council and champions of police accountability on council, folks who have come to Jesus about police accountability on council in the last year, are going to have to really dig in and do the hard work. Because remember, we were told that the reason why the 50% cut of SPD, which a majority of city council members signed off on, we were told the reason why that could not happen was because of the police contract. Now we have an opportunity to litigate the police contract. So this is an opportunity, and we should frame it maybe in positive terms. This is an opportunity for council members who expressed synergy with demands that were set forward by community to live up to what they said. And it really has to be put to them in that way. This is a chance for them to live up to the commitment that they said that they had for police accountability at an earlier point.
Right. Jaiden?
Jaiden, what? Which part you want me to holler back at?
we did cover quite a few things there, but I mean, the big thing is what are you wanting? And Shaun touched on quite a few parts there. Is there anything else that you're wanting the public to know about the city going into their negotiations here with the police union for this new contract?
There's my little everybody. Hey, I'm a mom.
Hey!
Little feature from my little. I'm going to be honest with you. What I would really like to see is the transparency, how to engage in this decision-making process that Seattle City Council, where and how to really make public comment that makes impact, how to engage. Grayson, you about to get me all types of crazy, boy. What you doing? Okay, come here. Come with mommy. What I'm really interested in is how it is when we're working towards transparency. The only reform that I'm interested in is how we reform the system so that it's something that people can be more aware of and be more present for and see. Because as it stands right now, it takes a deep breath of air and a lot of will to get to understanding what Seattle City Council does, how they operate, how it is that we can engage them further as community. I feel like a lot of that gatekeeping that was being discussed earlier in the show, it shows itself in the fact that community, for the most part, is left out of these conversations. And if they are, they're brought in a very tokenizing way. And so I want to see how it is that community can actually engage in a real way. And I want them to start being more forthright about, like, this is where you can show up to make this public comment. This is where you can come and have these discussions. For example, when we're having the press releases about the Seattle Police Department and the officers that were involved, those are coming to us in the middle of the night. That's not really the time you want to drop it if you want me to see it. You know what I'm saying? So that you can post a bunch of other things by the time I wake up and I'm not as privy to that information. I want the information without all the fluff. That's what I want. And I want them to start breaking down, because they make it very difficult to have conversations. And again, I come back to the political theater of it, because there's been so much of it and it's been so okay that when they do sit down to have a conversation, here, baby, when they do sit down to have a real conversation, with a member from community, they don't even know how to carry themselves, because they're so used to spinning out that was a fantastic question. Let me tell you what I think about this completely other thing that doesn't answer your question. And I'm kind of over that. I want access, and I want transparency across from our people to our leaders. And I want our leaders to actually represent the people and what it is they're saying. So that's what I'm interested in. I think all of the how it is that they go about it, we should just pay heavy attention to, because it speaks to, hi baby, sorry, because it speaks to whether they are, whether they're ready to take real steps or not, because it doesn't take a lot of conversation to say, yes, we gonna subpoena Solon.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I want to say here, Jay, sorry, but one of the things that I want to say here is that you're absolutely right, Jay, with regard to some of the ways that they do involve community and it feeling like tokenism. One of the things that I have realized is that they did have an open forum for folks to submit comments and questions about these police reforms. But I think when we talk to people in the community, people are sick and tired of those same old measures that really have not meant and provided great difference for how community experiences policing on a case-by-case and individual basis. So again, I think you're right to point out that a lot of the ways that they do try to engage community, it looks like tokenism, and the time for that is beyond. We need real people that are representing that community voice on the ground to take these measures directly to create some real change here. So I just wanted to say that, again, I see exactly what you mean there.
Right. We're up against a break right here. So unfortunately, we have to let you guys go. But I would say this, though, to all the citizen stakeholders out there in the Emerald City, the contract between the police union, it isn't between the police union and the city of Seattle. It's between the police union and the citizens of Seattle. And, on that, I actually encourage everybody to be a part of the process. Jaiden, Grayson, Shaun, Scott, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, the Morning Update show continues.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update show. My name is Omari Salisbury, joined by the incredible, amazing, and just all around wonderful person, Trey Holiday.
Thank you. This has been a great show, man.
Yeah, great show, great show. We want to end the show in a great way. We got another edition here of Struggle Meals Without the Struggle. I caught up with my son, Omari. He goes by Omi. He's a producer these days, so we respect the moniker. Hey, the last time we checked in with him, it was Thanksgiving. And before that, he almost burnt the house down over there with an oil fire at his apartment in Chicago. So talked to him yesterday, and he gave us the update on how the struggle meal is going without the struggle. Hold on, man. Is that a mustache?
Yes, bro. I'm telling you, it's coming in. And I got like chin hair. You can't see it because the camera quality is bad, but I got chin hairs coming in too. I'm out of the beard.
You got chin hairs and a mustache? Oh my God. What's going on? All right, so man, checking in here with Omi, super producer. He's out there at school at Loyola University in Chicago, but I got to give you some props today. You're rocking a shirt from my alma mater right there, Elizabeth City.
Gotta represent.
Yeah, Elizabeth City, North Carolina. When you was just itty bitty, when you was knee high to a raccoon, you used to be out there on that campus at Elizabeth City. So it's good to see you rocking it. Hey, so listen, man, another episode of Struggle Meals Without the Struggle. The last two times we checked in with you, man, it was crazy. The first time we checked in, you accidentally set the kitchen on fire. You had a grease fire, and You threw water on the grease fire, but you didn't burn down the house. I'm still waiting to see if I'm going to get a bill from the landlord on that. Hopefully he's not watching the show. Then the last time we talked to you was Thanksgiving. Your mom came through for the win. You had a nice Thanksgiving dinner. You're back there in Chicago. It's snow everywhere, so I don't even know how it's going down. Like, man, tell us what's the deal. How is the struggle meals without the struggle?
Well, they've actually been pretty good lately. My roommate Ricardo, he got like $300 in Food for Less cards from his mom. Don't know where they came from, but we went to Food for Less, got tons of food, which was pretty good. It wasn't even like on purpose, like we were preparing for the snowstorm to come, but we just happened to do it just in time. So we've been eating pretty good. I've been pretty much staying out the kitchen, you know.
I mean, that might be a good thing for everybody, right?
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. Ricardo, my roommate, he been cooking some mean steak. I don't know what it is. The steak be hitting.
You out there eating good in college?
I'm eating good. I mean,
you know, when I was there at Elizabeth City State University, I mean, eating good for us was like top ramen and cutting up a hot dog and putting it in there.
Oh no, I mean, I don't put hot dogs in my ramen. I just like that a little bit of hot sauce. You know, I do this thing where I add some like not Johnny's, no, some red hot sauce, and then I just add some honey in it. Delicious, trust, delicious.
Dog, you putting honey in top ramen?
Wait, I have a question. Do adults even eat top ramen anymore? Is that something you just stopped doing after a while?
Well, you know, top ramen came back into style once COVID came into style and people lost their jobs. It's a lot of adults eating top ramen right now, man.
Back to the struggle meals. Got you.
Yeah, and so top ramen for adults, that's struggle meal with the struggle. See, for you, it's struggle meals without the struggle. So what? I
think I want to change the name because we're actually eating pretty good out here. I think I just want to change the name to We Feasted.
we feasted, huh?
We feasted.
All right, so you said that you got some steak. What else did you guys get with this $300 of food?
We got a lot of breakfast food. We got a lot of vegetables. We're trying to eat healthier now. Okay, we're trying to eat healthier because,
man, are you going vegan on us?
If I was mentally strong enough, I would. You know, I would. I really would, but I can't. Trying. I don't drink whole milk no more. You know.
Don't they know you doing your struggle meals episode? You got your phone blowing up right now.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm a popular guy.
Oh my goodness.
You know how it is. I
don't know how it is. I'm not as popular as you, son. I aspire to be there one day. How you doing in class, man?
Pretty good, actually. Pretty good. Sadly, this semester, not sadly, I'm not taking all comm classes this semester. So it has been really interesting, real change of pace for, you know, because it's like I'm in classes that I 100% enjoy. So it's always a vibe. Like I look forward to all my classes because it's such an educational experience. Like last semester I was taking environmental science and I'm just sitting there like, I'm definitely going to use environmental science when I'm the head of Converge. I'm like, that was my thought. I was like, I'm definitely going to use environmental science.
Son, you know I'm intervening right here.
I said,
now you know your dad has a degree in geology right there from Elizabeth City State University. That same shirt you're wearing, and I minored in environmental science.
Yes.
And so you never know what an environmental class or degree might lead you to. And hold on, I only ended up in radio because I was doing water testing as a geologist, and they went on the radio with the chancellor for me to talk about this water testing I did. And the station manager, Edith Thorpe, heard my voice, and she was like, you don't need to be in geology, you need to be in radio. So actually, environmental science is what got us right here to where we're at Converge.
Who would have thought? Environmental science.
Yeah, I mean, man, respect that. Respect the green, man. You better
I respect it. I'm just sitting there like, wow, I really need to know this stuff. Like, really. But so this semester, I'm taking so many like just fun and interesting classes. I'm taking my introduction to video, which I'm really looking forward to right now. We're just getting started editing clips and stuff. And it's like, dang, this is cool and all, but like my professor's nowhere as good as Alia. So, you know, I just be sitting there vibing in class until we get to the stuff that I don't know yet.
Alia, she's a guru.
Yeah, top tier stuff. She's like, they were explaining the rule of like lower thirds, and I was like, is this not basic knowledge to everybody? Like, come on, man, I learned this over the summer. Head of the curve.
I mean, man, it was, hey, you got to tell people it was trial under fire. You was working on the morning update show in the middle of the chop.
Middle of the
like you was coming to the chop working on the morning update show every day. It's like I'm officially giving you some stripes, son.
I get some stripes?
Yeah, but
okay. But
I just thought about that. You used to come into the chop every day and do the morning update show. So yeah, I give you some stripes, man.
Appreciate it. I feel like I earned them.
All right. So, it sounds like you got everything covered. It sounds like you don't need no snacks. It sounds like you're not in the kitchen cooking right now, so we ain't got to worry about you burning it down. I do have a word of advice, though, from a lot of our viewers. 2 words for you. Air fryer.
I have one. That's the only thing I use. I love my air fryer. It's really efficient. It's great. My roommates love it, too. They weren't using it first semester when I bought it, right? I bought it because I was like, my mom's always talking about how we should get an air fryer for the house. I'm like, so I'm going to get an air fryer for my house. And it's just like, you just set on some settings. You just throw some stuff in there, take it out, cook. I love it.
My man, well, as usual, I want to tell you that we're really proud of you. Really proud of what you're doing. I saw your report card. You know what I'm saying? That's why you're on air right now. We ain't got to ban you because you're not failing out of school.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that 1B.
Exceptionally well. All A's and 1B for this guy. We're going to work. We got to get that B up to an A, man. But you're doing a great job out there in Chicago. We see all the snow out there. You stay warm. Just want to let you know I'm proud of you. I love you, son.
Love you too, Dad. And I'm proud of you. I see all the stuff y'all be doing over there at Converge. Y'all be popping off. Y'all really y'all heading to the top. I'm excited.
All right. Well, you're the future CEO, so that means that we heading to the top, right?
Right. Exactly.
All right, son. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Struggle meals without the struggle. Well, Omi.
I love hearing from Omi. And let me just say, y'all had me dying over here. We're talking about, do adults even eat top ramen? Man, let me tell you something. Oh, sometimes, okay? Sometimes it's like an ode to your childhood or something. I remember how my grandmama used to do it. Now we can go in and get the real ramen with the soft-boiled egg and the extra vegetables and all of that. Just hilarious, man. Y'all crack me up. Great work, Omi, with those grades, man. Keep it up.
That's what's up. So we're getting ready to get out of here. We got a lot of interviews coming up. It'll be lots of information for the community tomorrow, talking to Prosecutor Satterberg here shortly, and then followed by Mayor Durkin. And so we'll play those interviews tomorrow. We got to get out of here quickly, but any last words, Trey Holiday?
Make it a great Tuesday. As always, y'all, you know I love to bring that great message in. Wish I was with you. I'll be back tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. And before we get out of here, I want to remind everybody to go forward in your purpose and humanity. Until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.